Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe for more educational English videos like this one. A missed train and an unexpected day. It was a cool morning in early spring when Daniel arrived at the train station. He checked the time on his phone and realized he still had 10 minutes before his train to Ankara would leave. Feeling relaxed, he decided to buy a coffee. As he stood in line, he noticed a woman next to him who looked a bit stressed. She kept checking her watch and looking around nervously. "Excuse me," she said suddenly. "Do you know if this is the line for coffee or tickets?" Daniel smiled. "It's for coffee. The ticket machines are over there," he said, pointing behind her. "Oh no," she replied. "I think I'm going to miss my train." "You still have time," Daniel said. "Which train are you taking?" "The 9:15 to Ankara." Daniel's smile slowly disappeared. "Wait, that's my train too." Both of them quickly left the line and ran toward the ticket machines. Daniel had already bought his ticket online, but the woman hadn't. The machine was slow, and there were too many options. "Why are there so many buttons?" she said nervously. "Let me help," Daniel said, stepping closer. He quickly selected the correct options, and within a minute, her ticket was ready. "Thank you so much," she said. "I'm Layla, by the way." "I'm Daniel," he replied. "Now let's run." They rushed to the platform just as the train doors were closing. "No, no, no," Layla whispered. The train left right in front of them. For a moment, they both stood there in silence, trying to catch their breath. "Well," Daniel said finally, "I guess we're not going to Ankara today." Layla laughed softly. "I can't believe this. I had an important meeting." Daniel thought for a moment. "What time is your meeting?" At 2 p.m. Daniel checked his phone again. "There's another train at 10:30. It's slower, but we can still make it on time." Layla's face brightened. "Really? That's great." Since they now had more than an hour to wait, they decided to sit at a nearby cafe. "So," Daniel said, "what do you do in Ankara?" "I work for a design company," Layla explained. "We create modern furniture. Today I'm presenting a new project." "That sounds interesting," Daniel said. "I'm actually an architect." "No way," Layla said, surprised. "Maybe we should work together someday." They both laughed. As they continued talking, they realized they had many things in common. They both loved traveling, trying new food, and meeting new people. Time passed quickly, and soon it was time for their next train. This time, they arrived at the platform early. When the train came, they found seats next to each other. "You know," Layla said, "missing that train wasn't so bad after all." Daniel nodded. "Yeah, sometimes unexpected things turn into good experiences." As the train started moving, they both looked out the window, smiling quietly. It was the beginning of a new friendship.
Starting over in a new country. 2 years ago, I made one of the biggest decisions of my life. I moved to another country to study and work at the same time. Before that, I had never lived outside my hometown, so everything felt new, exciting, and a little bit scary. At first, I was very confident. I believed that I could easily adapt to my new life. I had studied English for many years, and I thought my language skills were good enough. However, when I arrived, I quickly realized that understanding people in real life was very different from listening to recordings in class. People spoke fast, used slang, and had different accents. Sometimes, I understood only half of what they were saying. In the beginning, this made me feel uncomfortable and even a bit embarrassed. I was afraid of making mistakes, so I didn't speak as much as I wanted to. My first few weeks were quite challenging. I had to find a place to live, open a bank account, and learn how to use public transportation. Simple tasks became stressful because everything was in a different language. I remember one day when I got lost while trying to find my apartment. I walked around for almost 2 hours before I finally asked someone for help. Fortunately, things started to improve over time. I realized that the best way to learn was to practice every day. Even if I made mistakes, I began to talk to people more often. In shops, on the bus, and at school, most people were patient and kind, which gave me more confidence. I also made a few close friends from different countries. We often shared our experiences and helped each other. Sometimes we laughed about our mistakes, like ordering the wrong food or misunderstanding simple questions. These moments made the process more enjoyable and less stressful. After a few months, I noticed a big change in myself. I was speaking more fluently, and I could understand conversations much better. I no longer felt nervous when talking to strangers. In fact, I started to enjoy it. Living in a new country also changed my perspective on life. I learned to be more independent and responsible. I had to manage my time, budget my money, and solve problems on my own. These experiences helped me grow as a person. Of course, there were still difficult moments. Sometimes I felt homesick and missed my family and old friends. I missed familiar food, traditions, and the comfort of my native language. On those days, I tried to stay connected with my loved ones by calling them or watching videos from my home country. One of the most valuable things I learned was how to adapt. Life does not always go as planned, but being flexible makes a big difference. Instead of focusing on problems, I started looking for solutions and opportunities. Now, when I think about my journey, I feel proud of how far I have come. Moving to another country was not easy, but it was definitely worth it. It taught me not only a new language, but also important life skills that I will use in the future. If someone asked me for advice about moving abroad, I would say this: don't be afraid of making mistakes. Mistakes are a natural part of learning. Be patient with yourself, stay open-minded, and take every opportunity to practice. Over time, you will see progress, and things will become easier.
A life change in a small coastal town. Last year, something unexpected happened in my life. After working in a busy office in the city for almost 10 years, I decided to leave everything behind and move to a small coastal town. Many of my friends were surprised by my decision. They thought I was making a mistake, but I felt it was the right time for a change. Life in the city was fast and stressful. Every day, I woke up early, rushed to work, and spent hours sitting in front of a computer. Even on weekends, I often felt tired and had little energy to enjoy my free time. Over time, I started to feel disconnected from myself and from nature. One day, while scrolling through social media, I saw a photo of a peaceful seaside village. The clear blue water, the quiet streets, and the simple lifestyle caught my attention. I began to imagine a different kind of life, one where I could slow down, breathe fresh air, and focus on what truly matters. After thinking about it for several weeks, I made my decision. I quit my job, packed my belongings, and moved to the town. At first, it was not easy. I didn't know anyone, and everything felt unfamiliar. There were moments when I doubted myself and wondered if I had made the wrong choice. However, things gradually started to change. I found a small job at a local cafe, where I met friendly people from the community. The customers were kind, and my co-workers were supportive. Slowly, I began to build a new routine. In the mornings, I walk along the beach before starting work. The sound of the waves and the fresh sea air help me feel calm and focused. In the afternoons, I work at the cafe, serving coffee and talking with customers. In the evenings, I often read books, cook simple meals, or watch the sunset. Living in a small town has taught me many important lessons. I have learned to appreciate simple moments, like having a conversation with a neighbor or enjoying a quiet cup of tea. I also realize that happiness does not always come from success or money, but from balance and peace of mind. Of course, there are still challenges. Sometimes I miss my old friends and the excitement of the city. There are fewer opportunities here, and life can feel slow. But overall, I feel more relaxed and satisfied with my life. Looking back, I believe this was one of the best decisions I have ever made. It reminded me that it is okay to change direction and try something new, even if it feels scary at first.
A year that changed everything. About 3 years ago, I went through a period in my life that completely changed the way I think about time, success, and happiness. At that time, I was working at a large company in a big city. From the outside, everything looked perfect. I had a stable job, a good salary, and a comfortable apartment. However, inside, I felt something was missing. Every day followed the same routine. I woke up early, quickly got ready, and rushed to catch the bus. The traffic was always heavy, and the journey to work often took more than an hour. By the time I arrived at the office, I already felt tired. Then, I spent most of the day sitting in front of a computer, answering emails, attending meetings, and trying to meet deadlines. At first, I told myself that this was normal. Many people live like this, and it is just part of adult life. But after a while, I started to question everything. I asked myself simple but important questions. Am I happy? Is this the life I really want? Unfortunately, I didn't have clear answers. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, I decided to go for a walk instead of going straight home. I walked without any specific direction, just trying to clear my mind. After some time, I found myself in a small park that I had never noticed before. It was quiet, with only a few people sitting on benches or walking their dogs. I sat down and just observed my surroundings. I noticed the sound of the wind in the trees, the laughter of children playing nearby, and the peaceful atmosphere. For the first time in a long time, I felt calm. That moment made me realize how disconnected I had become from simple, everyday experiences. From that day on, I started making small changes in my life. I began waking up a bit earlier, not to rush, but to have some quiet time for myself. Sometimes I read a book. Sometimes I just sat with a cup of coffee and thought about my plans for the day. These small moments helped me start my day in a more relaxed way. I also tried to spend less time on my phone and social media. Before, I used to scroll for hours without even noticing. It often made me feel worse because I was constantly comparing my life to others. When I reduced this habit, I felt more focused and less stressed. A few months later, I made a bigger decision. I asked my manager if I could work remotely for some time. At first, I was nervous about this conversation, but surprisingly, my manager agreed. This gave me the opportunity to leave the city temporarily and stay in a quieter place. I chose a small town near the mountains. It was very different from the city. There were fewer people, less noise, and a slower pace of life. At the beginning, it felt strange. I was used to constant activity, and suddenly everything was calm. However, after a few weeks, I started to enjoy this new lifestyle. I worked during the day, but in the evenings, I went for long walks, explored nature, and even started cooking more often. I discovered that I actually enjoyed simple activities that I never had time for before. During this period, I also learned more about myself. I realized that I don't need a busy and stressful life to feel successful. Instead, I need balance, time for work, but also time for rest, hobbies, and relationships. One important lesson I learned is that change does not have to be sudden or dramatic. Small steps can lead to big results over time. At the beginning, I only changed my morning routine. Then I changed my habits, and eventually, I changed my environment. Of course, not everything was perfect. There were days when I felt unmotivated or uncertain about my future. Sometimes I wondered if I was making the right choices. But instead of ignoring these feelings, I tried to understand them. After almost a year, I returned to the city, but I was not the same person anymore. I had a different mindset and new priorities. I continued working, but I no longer allowed work to control my entire life. Now, I try to maintain a healthy balance. I still have responsibilities and busy days, but I also make time for things that make me feel alive, spending time with friends, being in nature, and learning new skills. Looking back, that year was one of the most important periods of my life. It taught me that success is not only about money or career growth. It is also about how you feel every day and how satisfied you are with your life. If I could give one piece of advice, it would be this: take time to reflect on your life. Ask yourself what truly matters to you. And remember, it is never too late to make a change, even if it starts with something very small.
Learning something new later in life. A few years ago, I decided to learn something completely new, even though many people around me thought it was too late. I was in my early 30s, working a full-time job, and living a relatively comfortable life. However, I felt like I needed a new challenge, something that would push me out of my comfort zone. The idea came to me one evening while I was watching a documentary about people who changed their careers later in life. Some of them became artists, others started businesses, and a few even went back to school. Their stories were inspiring, but they also made me question my own life. I asked myself, what is something I've always wanted to do but never tried? After thinking about it for a few days, I realized that I had always been interested in music. When I was younger, I wanted to learn how to play the guitar, but I never had the time or opportunity. At first the idea seemed unrealistic. I had no experience, no musical background, and a very busy schedule. I also felt a bit embarrassed. I imagined myself as a beginner, making mistakes, while others were much more skilled. This fear almost stopped me from starting. But then I remembered something important. Everyone starts somewhere. No one is born knowing how to play an instrument. With that in mind, I decided to give it a try. I bought a simple guitar and started watching online lessons. In the beginning, it was more difficult than I expected. My fingers hurt, I couldn't play chords correctly, and my timing was completely off. Sometimes, I felt frustrated and wanted to quit. However, I made a promise to myself. I would practice at least 20 minutes every day, no matter how busy I was. Some days, I didn't feel motivated, but I still picked up the guitar and tried. After a few weeks, I noticed small improvements. I could change chords more smoothly, and I started to recognize simple melodies. These small successes gave me confidence and encouraged me to continue. A few months later, I joined a local music group for beginners. This was a big step for me because I had to play in front of other people. At first, I was very nervous. My hands were shaking, and I made many mistakes. But something surprising happened. No one judged me. In fact, everyone was supportive. We were all learning, and we all made mistakes. This experience helped me relax and enjoy the process more. Over time, playing the guitar became part of my daily routine. It was no longer just a challenge, it became something I truly enjoyed. After a long day at work, playing music helped me relax and clear my mind. More importantly, this experience changed the way I see learning. I used to believe that learning new skills becomes harder as we get older. While it may take more time and effort, it is definitely possible. I also learned the importance of patience. Progress is not always fast or visible. Sometimes, it feels like you are not improving at all. But if you stay consistent, you will eventually see results. Another lesson I learned is that fear often comes from our own thoughts. We imagine failure, embarrassment, or judgment from others. In reality, most people are too focused on their own lives to judge us. Now, after more than a year of practice, I can play several songs. I am not a professional, but I am proud of my progress. More importantly, I enjoy every moment of playing. Looking back, I realize that starting was the hardest part. Once I took the first step, everything else became easier. If I had waited for the perfect time, I would probably still be waiting. If someone is thinking about learning something new, my advice is simple. Just start. You don't need to be perfect, and you don't need to know everything in advance. Take small steps, stay consistent, and don't be afraid of making mistakes. In the end, learning something new is not only about the skill itself. It is also about discovering new parts of yourself, building confidence, and enjoying the journey.